Hi guys and welcome to the channel. My name is Jared Walters and today we are going to be talking about 5 ways you may be psychic and not even realize it. Now, for some people, they've been brought into it all their lives. For myself, I was lucky because even though I've seen and heard and felt different things and weird things and had strange experiences all my life, I have come across people that have no frame of reference for these types of experiences or no reason but an understanding why these have come into their lives. And when they start learning to develop these abilities, they tend to find that they are unlearning stuff that we're actually doing right in the first place. So this is where this list has come from, to look at some of the natural abilities that we actually have that fit into the category of extrasensory perception, spiritual or psychic abilities. Now, I use the terms very, very loosely because these abilities, a lot of the time people say they are like a psychic gift or a curse that have been given to people, and it's like almost like a rite of passage kind of thing, which this simply isn't true. I do believe that to varying degrees of extent, just like any talent, with the right amount of work and development and attention, all of us could and probably will at some point in maybe not this lifetime, but I believe in sort of we have multiple lifetimes, and I believe it's part of being human, and within the next sort of 100 years we will start to understand this a lot more. So the first one I'm picking up on today is intuition and gut instinct, and this is the basic, this is the foundation of when I'm developing, working with development. I've been developing myself. I always go with my intuition when I'm giving a reading, when I'm working with someone, when I am just, I get that sort of gut feeling, I get that sort of intuition, and it's something that we've all had. Back in the 90s and the noughties, before we had smartphones which displayed numbers, we'd have the phenomena of people knowing who was on the other end of the telephone before even answering. Or when you're thinking of an old friend and suddenly a couple of days later you suddenly see that old friend or communicate with them or have a phone call from them. There's so many different examples of this when we feel that we are missing something in our lives, we're missing something like a piece of the puzzle that we need, and it sort of comes out of nowhere, which is what we call synchronicity. And in my last video I discussed about the Celestine prophecy, which starts talking about a lot of this as well. So developing intuition and trusting your gut instinct, trusting your heart, what you feel in your heart, because a lot of the time our intuition will tell us something which goes against what our mind is telling us, and there's a bit of a conflict between the head and the heart. And there's plenty of occasions where a lot of people, and I don't think there's many people who haven't had this experience, where they have genuinely felt that they should have taken one road, they took another and then regretted it and said, why didn't I trust my gut feeling? Why didn't I trust it? And this is the foundation. This is the foundation that all of us have kind of worked with. You see any person who's genuine in this sort of side of life, they will use that intuition, because when you tap into it, that is the source of knowing that we all have. And that is the true feeling, the true sense of us. You only truly know something when you feel it, and that's where that comes from. That's our connection. That's our divine connection, and I suppose, if we will, to use sort of familiar words on that. So the second one is vivid dreams, lucid dreams, and precognitive dreams. Now, have you ever had a dream of a loved one that you have lost, and they've appeared after their passing and told you that they are okay, or have appeared in a dream that is very, very bright, vivid, and a part of that dream survives with you for the next couple of days in your waking life? Have you ever taken control of a dream, realized that you are dreaming, and are in a dream state and actually took control of the dream? Or have you ever had dreams where you are interacting with people and places here on the earth plane, but it feels like the relationships between you are different to how they actually are? And have you ever dreamt of the future? Have you ever dreamt of an event that has happened a few days later? Loads and loads of people, people who are not really sort of into the psychic side of things or the spiritual side of things, or know much about this, have told me about these experiences where they had a dream and exactly the same thing happened several days, weeks or months later. And I believe our dreams are a connection to the other realm, the other parts of ourselves. The way I look at consciousness, and this is a personal opinion, and it's a way of expressing it. And I always say to people, if you imagine you take a child to the cinema for the first time, that child will be forgiven for thinking that the picture exists on the screen, but actually not realizing that the picture is beamed from a much smaller source behind your head when you're sat in the cinema. I believe that is what consciousness is it's sort of almost like beaming in. It's not actually existing within the structure of our brain, in a sense, or at least part of it isn't. That's again a personal sort of belief and a personal interpretation. And in order to interact with this reality, you use a vehicle, you use the body. And that vehicle it's like a computer, for example. Your consciousness is the user. These are the mouse and keyboard, along with this, these, and that. This is your screen. This is your speakers, and it's a very similar sort of process. And that's kind of what I've come to know and understand. When we're sleeping, that kind of switches off, and the consciousness just basically looks over to the next screen. And we can have these types of interactions, and often our dreams can give us insight into what's happening within our lives, what's happening in the world around us, and what's happening on the place, if there is life after death, the place that we go to after death, and the place that we come from before we came here. So that is a way of which you can develop your abilities. What I advise you to do if you are having these types of dreams is to keep a dream diary, keep like a dialogue on notes on a computer, whatever, something you can look back on. Because what I've found over the course of my life is when I start putting a lot of these dreams together, they form a pattern or tell a story, or tell several stories of which have helped me throughout my life, especially when I'm exploring my own inner world and my own inner workings. The third one is sensitivity to... Sorry, I just had to read the screen. Sensitivity to people and environment. Now, have you ever been around a friend that's going through something and they haven't said anything about it? You know there's something wrong, and you may not be able to say something, or you just get a sense of something. Another one I've had where you see two people together and you know they're going to end up together, or you get a sense of knowing that something is going to happen, and this again is the foundation of where these sort of abilities come from, where they build from. If I'm working sort of with what I call working with spirit. I call it spirit because it's the best word to use, and what I mean by that is if I'm working with someone's loved ones, or working with their spirit, working with their consciousness, or working with the deeper parts of my own consciousness, I refer to it as spirit, as do a lot of other people. But if I'm working that way, I'm using that part of myself, that sensitivity to what other people are going through. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're reading their mind. As a sense, what you're doing is you are forming the bridge between their consciousness, your consciousness, and the consciousness of those probably around them, close to them, that wish to sort of convey a message. Now, for those of you who are quite sensitive or going through a psychic awakening, a lot of the times you're hearing things before you go to bed at night, or seeing things out the corner of your eye, having very strange experiences around you, which we will talk about in the last point of this. But that is where it comes from, and this sort of sensitivity to people. The other one I can pick out is if you know instantly when someone is lying. You can't understand how you know, you just know. And there's several instances in my life where I've met people and I know that person is going to play a part of something within my life. I don't necessarily know what that is, and I've learned not to attach any expectation to what that is, but there are several instances now where I've met a person and I know me and you are going to become friends, or me and you are going to work together, or whatever it happens to be. So the next point is a sense of knowing what the right thing to say. Sorry guys, I want to explain something very, very quickly, and I want to do these videos just kind of off the bat, not editing, delivering them as if I was talking to you in a conversation. And I do actually have a visual impairment, and I'm going to talk about that in a future video. So I do find sometimes it's a bit difficult to sort of operate the software and record the video at the same time. So if I am doing something like that, it's because I'm actually registered blind, but I do have some vision. So that's basically why that's coming out that way. Okay. Are you always the person amongst your group of friends wherever something goes down, you are the one they come to? When something happens in the family, you are the one they come to. And a lot of the time, these types of people, I used to be one of them, often find they just want the best for everyone, but they forget that they are actually a person in amongst the everyone, and they fail to realise that they are not looking after themselves. That's one of the common trappings of these. And again, this is not so much a telltale of you having psychic or spiritual ability, but it is something that you have, like a part of you, maybe you access inertly a part of you. You might not interpret it as a spiritual or psychic thing, you might just interpret it as part of your personality, but there's a part of you, there's something about you that people inertly trust. And I've found that, I don't know why, to be honest, but because I've screwed it up quite a few times, but there seems to be, people seem to trust in you, and you tend to find that you are that kind of person that always sort of is able to say the right thing. It's as if you are accessing a part of yourself that you're not quite aware of. It's somewhere, again, deep within yourself, deep within your soul, deep within your spirit, or deep within your psyche. And I've had several instances like this in my life where strangers on a bus stop have basically told me things, or strangers on a train have kind of confided in me for just no reason, or I always end up being at the centre of, and I'm very much, my personality, I'm very much an outsider, I'm very much a kind of an invisible person in a sense, until I am needed. I don't have a lot of friends, I don't have a large circle of friends. I generally stick to 2 or 3 people at a time. I don't like large crowds or gatherings. I used to when I was younger, but nowhere near these days, because I prefer my own company more than I prefer. It doesn't mean I don't socialise and things, but I do like my own company quite considerably. So it's not, it's in a sense, I've always found it, for me, like kind of out of character, why that would keep happening to me. And I believe after now doing this for about 10 years, that it's part of my character. When I've given readings, I'm often surprised because when you're working this way, you are a channel. You're a channel for information. You're a channel for knowledge. You're a channel for understanding, for helping people to understand things in their own way. And that's kind of a lot of the problem with the way the media depicts psychic communities, the way that the way that sort of business depicts psychic communities. Are you going to get the man of your dreams, or are you going to do this, or are you going to do that? And it really isn't about that. A lot of the time I find myself actually having to give give emotional support to strangers. And I remember a friend telling me, why does that fall to you? And I was like, well, there's, obviously if there was something else, the people would be going to those people, but it just seems that that's the side of this that a lot of people don't actually realise, is you are dealing with people a lot of the time who are in very, very vulnerable situations, and you do have to, now in the later part, in the last sort of 8 to 9 years, I've understood that that's a personal responsibility, and I've accepted that as part of who I am. But I realise there's part of that sense, that part of me that's already been switched on, and I did it naturally, and I kind of lost it for a few years and had to find it again, and had to realise that was something that I'd already knew. It's just the fact, and there's no guidebook for these types of things. I was just doing it naturally because it felt like the right thing to do. And the last point I want to bring up today is paranormal activity. Now, this doesn't happen to everyone, and it can be intermittent, or it can be full on, or you could have spikes of it, or you could have, if you are going through a sort of a period of time now where your abilities are starting to awaken, and you're starting to sort of remember, and this is starting to come into your consciousness awareness. Paranormal activity can pick up quite quite a lot, because you essentially become like a blip on the radar. And in my last video I talked about spiritual awakening and your energy changing. If spirits, then whether it's spirits that are here on the earth plane that haven't gone over to the other side, I suppose I'll have to talk about that in another video, but you do attract activity, and you do almost like create activity. You can have things around you, and a lot of the time spirit do this where it's loved ones or guides, so that you actually seek help, and it helps you start on that journey. A lot of times people have had quite a lot of activity happen around them. Things moving, doors opening and closing by themselves, hearing things before they go to bed, hearing someone calling their name, seeing things out the corner of their eye. As my work as a paranormal investigator, we have documented this on several occasions, and after the investigation, this is what was happening. If you want more information on that, then check out our sister channel, which is Paranormal Now on YouTube. I will put a link to that channel at the end of this video. So are you going through any of these things at the moment? Please do let me know in the comments section below. You can check out my previous video. That was my first video on spiritual awakening, which will be, I think it's going to be that side of you. Yeah, I've got it right. I've got the mirror right. And down below that, there's going to be a subscription to this channel if you find this information helpful and you would like to subscribe to the channel and find out when I post updates. I'm aiming to post updates very, very regularly, a good few times a week, and you can have a look at our paranormal channel and our weekly podcast, a weekly live show that we do on a Wednesday night called the Now Debate, where we talk about our paranormal investigation work, have special guests, and talk about famous cases of activity as well. Thank you very much for joining me today on this video. I hope it has been helpful to you, and I very much would love to hear your feedback, and take care of yourself. I will see you soon in the next video.